The AltoKnights. We're getting all our info right from the Rotten Tomatoes page. You know, it's kind of the hub for the initial reactions from both critics and audiences, right?
Right. Yeah. It's that first wave
Yeah.
of feeling, and you know what people are saying.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're on a mission here. We're going to try to extract, you know, the most important and the juicy stuff, the meat of what's being said about this movie, so that you can have a better idea of whether or not this film is hitting the mark.
Yeah, it's like we're doing the work for you, so you don't have to wade through all the noise and get right to the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's just set the scene here. The Alto-Knights is a crime drama. It's 2 hours and 3 minutes long. It's got an R rating, so there's going to be some violence and language. You've been warned. It came out March 21st, 2025, in theaters everywhere. And the box office opening weekend gross in the U.S. was $3.2 million, which, I mean, he was kind of low.
Yeah, for a movie like this, you'd think.
Especially with this cast, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So BarryLevinson is the director, and he's done a ton of really iconic films, Rain Man, Bugsy even. And then the cast is led by RobertDeNiro.
Huge name.
Huge name. And here's the thing, this is interesting. He plays not one, but two main characters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. FrankCostello and Vito Genovese. Those are two really big names in organized crime. So rounding out the main cast, we've got DebraMessing, Catherine Narducci, Cosmo Jarvis, and Michael Rispoli. So there's some names you'll recognize in there too. And then for the writing side, we have Nicholas Pileggi as the screenwriter who wrote Goodfellas. So.
Oh, wow. So that right away that makes me think, okay, we're in familiar territory, right?
Like you would think so, yeah. So the premise of the movie is these two, you know, huge figures in organized crime used to be allies, and now they're just totally, you know, fighting each other for power and dominance.
That's classic.
Classic.
Yeah, that's classic mob movie.
Right, and you've got De Niro playing both of them, so I mean that's got to be pretty interesting to see how that dynamic plays out.
Yeah. I mean, you got to wonder how much screen time they actually share, right? Or if it's more like...
Yeah, is it like a Parent Trap situation?
Right, exactly. Or is it more, you know, they're really going to head to head?
Right. Well, and Pileggi, you would think, would bring a certain level of like sharpness to the storytelling and authenticity. You know, he's been there and done that.
For sure. I mean, he's known for that, so
Yeah.
there's certain expectations there.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into what the critics are saying. And this is kind of interesting because the Tomatometer right now is sitting at 39%. And as you know, that's the percentage of positive reviews from professional critics.
So not very high.
No, not very high. So under 40% generally means like the critics are not really feeling it. And the critics' consensus reads, a competent but tired retread of mob movie tropes. The Alto-Knights pits De Niro versus De Niro with no real victor emerging.
Wow. Okay, so it sounds like they're saying it's just kind of like more of the same.
Yeah.
Like we've seen this before.
Right. And they even say, you know, De Niro versus De Niro doesn't even really have a clear winner. So even that dynamic that we talked about doesn't really seem to be working for them.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it sounds like maybe the movie itself is kind of muddled.
Yeah, let's get into some specific comments from the critics and see what they're saying. Katie Walsh from Tribune News Service gave it a 2.5 out of 4, and she said it's more interesting in the context of Robert De Niro's filmography than it is necessarily as a standalone picture.
So maybe for the super fans who are like watching his career over time,
Yeah.
it might be interesting to see where this fits in.
Right. Yeah, but maybe not for your average moviegoer.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Then you've got Christy Lemire from Film Week, and she just goes right for the jugular. She says, I don't know why this movie exists. It breathes no new life into the mobster movie genre at all, and will only serve to remind you of better movies.
Ouch.
Yeah. That's pretty rough. I mean, it makes you think, like, is this movie just completely unnecessary?
Right. Like it's not offering anything new is what she's saying.
Yeah, and there are already so many good mom movies out there, like, why bother with this one?
And that's the thing, right? When you're making a movie in a genre that's been done so many times before, you got to bring something new to the table.
Exactly. Okay, so Tim Cogshaw, also from Film Week, he has a slightly different take. He says that he likes it as a piece of classical gangster theater, so maybe he's appreciating it for its adherence to, you know, those classic elements of the genre.
Yeah, maybe he's looking for that familiarity. Maybe that's what he enjoys.
Right. Dennis Schwartz just says, I expected better, and gives it a B, so kind of like a shrug, I guess.
Yeah, like man.
Yeah. And then Edwin Arnolden from Asheville Movies, he's got a pretty funny comment. He describes it as having the anonymous look and shaggy storytelling of an HBO original movie from 1998.
Oh, wow.
So he's saying it's kind of dated.
Yeah, and for a movie that came out in 2025, that's not a good sign.
Right, exactly. And then finally, Steven Silver from Splice, today. He just says, it's very difficult to make a boring movie about the Mafia, but the AltoKnights has managed it.
Okay, so they're really not holding back.
This is interesting because they're all saying different things that work for them.
Yep.
Some are saying it's boring, some are saying it's dated, some are saying it's unoriginal, so it's not just one thing that's wrong with it. It seems like there are multiple issues.
Like a multi-car pileup.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now let's see what the audience has to say, because this is where it gets really interesting. The popcorn Varnometer, which is, based on audience ratings, is sitting at a much higher 72%. So there's a pretty big gap between what the critics are saying and what the general public is saying.
That is interesting. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think sometimes audiences are just looking for something different. They're not necessarily looking for originality or, groundbreaking cinema. They just want to be entertained.
Yeah, they might just want to see De Niro do his thing.
Exactly. And, the marketing for the movie might have really leaned into that De Niro angle. So let's look at some specific audience comments. Brittany R. gave it 2 out of 5 stars and said, I was so confused what was happening until almost the last 30 minutes. Because of De Niro playing 2 characters.
Okay, so that dual role thing really threw her off.
Yeah, it seems like it wasn't very clear.
You would think they would have made that more obvious.
You would think so, right? Telly gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but still said it was De Niro's least best movie and that it was long drawn out and just kind of wanting more.
Yeah, so even the people who are giving it decent ratings are still having some reservations.
Right. And Robert Barney also praised De Niro's acting, but said the movie was slow developing, so that seems to be a common thread.
Yeah, pacing seems to be an issue.
Yeah. Okay, so on the more positive side, Tigranji just said De Niro's brilliance shown and gave it 5 stars, so...
And some people are loving it.
Yeah, they're just there for De Niro, and that's it. Jimma said, Robert De Niro's element watch language, though, and gave it 4 stars. So again, praising De Niro, and then Gadget Smart gave it 5 stars and praised the impressive effects and an interesting story that kept you engaged to the end.
So that's interesting because we didn't hear anything about the effects from the critics.
Right. Maybe that's something that appeals more to the general audience.
Yeah, maybe it's a more visual spectacle than a narrative one.
Possibly. Okay, so to recap, we've got this movie with a really interesting concept. De Niro playing both Costello and Genovese, and it's got some serious talent behind it, BarryLevinson, NicholasPileggi. But the critical reception has been pretty rough. They're saying it's unoriginal, boring, dated, and some are even questioning why it exists at all.
Yeah, it seems like they were expecting a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. Audiences seem to be more divided. Some are loving it, especially for De Niro's performance, but a lot of people are also saying it's slow, confusing, and just not that great.
It's like a mixed bag.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that dual role concept that seems so intriguing at first is actually causing some confusion for viewers.
Yeah, it seems like maybe it wasn't executed as well as it could have been.
Right, so the big question is this movie worth your time and money?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right, and it really depends on what you're looking for. If you're a diehard De Niro fan, you might enjoy seeing him tackle these 2 roles, but if you're looking for something fresh and original, you might be disappointed.
Yeah, and if you're sensitive to pacing, if you don't like movies that drag, you might want to skip this one.
Exactly, and also think about what your expectations are going into it. Are you expecting a classic mob movie, or are you expecting something different?
Yeah, because this movie seems to be straddling that line a little bit.
Yeah, it is. So ultimately, the decision is yours, but we hope that this deep dive has given you a better understanding of what people are saying about the AltoKnights, both good and bad.
Yeah, we've tried to present all the different perspectives so you can make an informed decision.
Exactly, and that's what we're all about here at the Deep Dive.
Absolutely giving you the information you need to decide for yourself.
So until our next deep dive, keep exploring.
And keep watching movies.
And keep watching movies, good or bad.
Exactly.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See.